Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael G. Neese, president of Our Future is Kind, and your trusted companion as we search out kindness strategies we can use in our everyday lives. Together, as we chase the idea of building a kinder future, we will interview experts in kindness, team building, human motivation, corporate culture building, relationships, plus politicians, artists, and those with a vision for a healthy and kind future, one we all want to live in and deserve to enjoy together. In addition to interviews, we will consider positive depictions of humanity's future in art, literature, the movies, and media. And we will issue kindness challenges each week, give an update about Our Future is Kind, the company, and what it's doing to stay true to its mission. So let's dive in. Stick around after this episode to hear a great announcement about today's guest, Brian Biro, and his involvement in the Human Summit. Enjoy the episode. Today's guest is Brian Biro, and he is America's breakthrough speaker. He's delivered nearly 1,900 presentations around the world over the last 35 years to over 1 million participants. Brian is the author of 16 books, including his bestseller, Beyond Success, and his brand new Lessons from the Legends. With degrees from Stanford University and UCLA, Brian has appeared on Good Morning America and CNN, and Brian was recently honored as one of the top 10 interactive keynote speakers in North America and one of the top 50 motivational speakers in the world. Please welcome Brian Biro.
Oh, thank you so much, Michael. What a joy and a privilege to be with the King of Kindness. It's a joy to be with you.
Well, one of the first things I want to break into is to dispel that myth. I think there may be another King of Kindness here. After all, I was really thrilled when you sent me this book, The ROI of Kindness. It's a very quick read. It's filled with all these great statistics about why kindness is so powerful and so effective. I would love to hear your thoughts on why you wrote this, but before we go there, I gave you an introduction, but tell everybody here who's watching and listening in, who is Brian Biro and what makes you, you?
Well, I love that question. I appreciate it. And I think probably the starting place is what I put on every email that I ever send. My little thing at the bottom of the page says Brian Biro, husband, father, grandfather, speaker, author. So that's the number one priority. That's the way I always want to put it. The most important thing to me is my family. I've had a blast, Michael. I've had 3 awesome careers. And the common bond through all 3 careers is a passion and a love for people, a belief that we have in us great potential. So my first career, after I graduated from Stanford, my buddies thought I was crazy because they were going to medical school and engineering school. But I had put myself through school as a swimming coach. And I loved it. And I understood that you didn't really coach swimming. You coach people. And so my first career was as a United States swimming coach and had a blast. My team became the largest team in America. Had 44 of my kids earn full college scholarships, had a ball. But wow. I had no life. And the only reason I'm probably still not a swimming coach was I wanted a life. I wanted to have a family. I wanted to know who I was outside of my job. And so my second phase, I'm probably, Michael, the only guy who went to graduate school to get a life instead of a job. And I did. I ended up becoming a vice president of 2 large companies. And that's where the real team building passion kind of escalated, because in our company, as with many companies, there was so much siloing, so much separation. Operations didn't like sales. Sales didn't like operations. They both didn't like the home office a little bit more. And that just made no sense to me from my background in sport. And swimming is absolutely a team sport. You may not think it, but when we swim together, it's as if we have a current pushing us faster. So that's when I actually started developing team building work in my own company. I did a series of seminars throughout our own company. We had this incredible turnaround. And I went to my wife at the peak of this. We were doing extraordinarily well. Honey, we're doing great. Let's quit. This is what I want to go do. I want to go be a professional speaker. And so for 35 years. You experienced me this year at the NSA Influence event. It's been my passion to speak about leadership and team building, and the foundation of that is that everyone's a leader. That's what I want people to understand. Most people, when they hear, "Oh, he's a leadership speaker," think, "Oh, I speak to the C-suite or the manager and above." Leadership has nothing to do with the title. We're all personal leaders. How do you show up every day? That's a huge part of your leadership. How do you deal with adversity, with challenge, with change, with prosperity? That's leadership. Most important of all, what kind of impact do you have on people? Do you lift them up? Do you neutralize them? Do you bring them down? So you're already a leader. Whoever is watching your incredible show, you're a leader. And so my focus is about breakthrough leadership. And that's really about focusing on the things you do control, which is where we feel joy, momentum, confidence, and getting away from worrying about the things we don't control. Because that's when we feel disillusionment, separation, anger, frustration. So I see myself as a breakthrough coach, a breakthrough leader to help people break through, whether it's in your personal life, with your family, in your relationships, in your health, in your business, in your career, in your spirit, and understanding that you have choices about the things that you do control and to really focus in on those.
I love it. I am absolutely fascinated by how warm you are and how easy it is to feel that warmth and that joy that just comes from you. One of the things that I've heard about really good counselors, right, really good therapists, is that you should look for someone who looks for you. And I feel like that is a big piece of who you are. You step into a room filled, like at the NSA conference that we were in Denver. You stepped into that room and it's like you saw all of us. You found us. And I don't want to spoil exactly how you did that, because I think it's just such a fantastic thing. But can you tell me, where do you get that joy and that sense of wanting to know the other person? Because it's visceral.
Well, from as long as I can remember, I have had a belief in people, and it really comes down to what's called the Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is something that every parent, every human being should understand, and it's a real, absolute effect. And that is, Pygmalion effect says that our thoughts and our beliefs and our expectations are magnetic. That not only when we look at people do we see who they are, but the way we see them is pulling them magnetically in the direction that we see them, whether we see their possibilities or their limits. See, we're already a Pygmalion. There's only one question: what kind? Are we a positive Pygmalion who believes that there's something deeper in people? One of my books is called "There Are No Overachievers," and we're all underachievers, meaning we all have so much more in us. And so from the time I can remember, I have loved helping people to believe more in themselves, to look for their possibilities. And it's not to pretend that we don't have our problems, our challenges, our things we want to improve. But what you focus on is what you create. And if you focus on the obstacle, you're going to create the obstacle. You focus on the breakthrough, you're going to move towards the breakthrough. And that's especially true with people. So I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was just from where I was born from. My parents were great people. My dad was awful tough. But I always loved people more than I can put into true expression. And that's why when I'm as a speaker, I think my main focus is that by the end of the keynote, end of whatever the event is, that the participants are the stars, that they walk out filled up with a sense of, wow, what did I do? Maybe I could do more than I thought I could do. Maybe I could start that podcast. Maybe I could lose that weight. Maybe I could break through with my teenager and really connect with them. And to me, that's the joy. I don't really care if people remember my name. What I want them to do is remember their name. I want them to remember their possibilities. And so there's a kind of a transition when you come from that place, that it's all about bringing out the best in the people around you.
Well, to everybody who's tuned in, Brian Biro, Biro, I want you to look him up and I want you to find out where he is speaking. I want you to look him up on YouTube. Get inspired, because I was in your presence and I absolutely felt like you were making all of us the stars of the program. And it was a joy to watch an expert up there on stage just absolutely delivering. You did it every minute that you were up there. So, yeah. I want to talk about your book. Again, I know you've written 16 books at this point.
Yep.
Right. Well,
I'm old.
Can you
What can I tell you? I've been around a long time. So when you're that old, you make stuff happen. I will say this. When I'm on stage, Michael, I'm 25. When I get off stage, I'm 70 again, but on stage, I'm 25.
Well, you look 25 to me, sir. So, the ROI of kindness, right? For those of you who don't know ROI, it is that term in corporate America that means return on investment. So those of you who are listening in, maybe you're corporate leaders, maybe you're just part of that circle where you're thinking about, well, why should I do this? What's in it for me? What's in it for our company? So the ROI of kindness, what inspired you to write this?
Well, I am so glad you asked that because I think this is where we are truly kindred spirits. Over the last little less than a decade, maybe 8 or 9 years, to me, I felt that we have had a tremendous downturn in the understanding of the power and the beauty of kindness. That there's more antagonism, separation, siloing, more vengeance and revenge, and more people focusing on retribution rather than on lifting one another up. And we have a kindness void. And so I wrote this book first of all, with that inspiration that I wanted to refresh and ignite people to understand that not only is kindness a good thing, we all want to be kind in our hearts. We all want to be treated with kindness. But I also wanted to start from the place that kindness works. All right, from a pure practical standpoint, to get people to understand that kindness is not a weakness. In the last 9 or 10 years, I've seen, especially in the political realm, I'll put it there, that what I've seen is that people somehow think that kindness is weak, that kindness is soft, that kindness doesn't work, that it's dog eat dog. And so the starting place of this book is to prove that and prove it with facts. That is the ultimate mistake. That kindness is perhaps the single most differentiating possibility you can bring into your organization. I don't care what industry, if you want it to explode to a higher level of success. Kindness to and from your customers, kindness to and from each other, the kindness really works. So in the beginning of the book, I start by trying to kind of surprise people right out of the gate to get people to open their eyes and not use their memory to see, not use your watching, the television news to say, oh, when they're kind, they're soft. So I get people to kind of go, whoa, I didn't realize that. And maybe open your eyes to a fresh way of thinking. Then talk about organizations within almost every industry. If you look at the top companies in the industry over time, those are the companies that not only want kindness, but actually focus on working towards building kindness every single day to really elevate their performance. And so the starting place of this book was to say, hey, guess what? Kindness is effective on the bottom line. Kindness is hugely effective in customer loyalty. Kindness is tremendous when it comes to reducing turnover, which for many companies is the most dangerous way of being in business. You're going to lose your company if you have too much turnover. And so that's the beginning point. Then I want to take it personally. Not everybody's going to be named the CEO or the COO or the CFO of their company, but you can immediately, this moment on Michael and Lisa's show, you can decide to go into that C-suite to become the CKO, which is the Chief Kindness Officer. All right. And the Chief Kindness Officer is simply making a choice that I'm going to choose kindness in every interaction, especially, and this is so important, it's easy to be kind to kind people. It's easy to be warm when people are warm to you. What it matters is to be kind when people are not kind, to be kind and warm when people are scared, they're not at their best, when people are struggling in their challenges, that's when kindness can make the biggest transformation. So that second part of the book really deals with I'm making a choice that I can make no matter whether I'm the newest employee in the company, whether I'm supposedly at the very bottom of the pecking order, and anywhere in between, that I can choose to be the chief kindness officer, both internally and externally. And finally, the book ends by focusing on, okay, I know I want to be kind, but how do you really deliver kindness in a full spectrum kind of a way? It's much more than just saying nice things to people. And so I talk about, just to play off on Stephen Covey, who I really enjoyed. He wrote a wonderful endorsement of my first book, Beyond Success. I wrote for his magazines, and I call it the 7 Habits of Highly Effective CKOs. So this is the way you become truly kind in a full spectrum kind of a way.
Well, I tell you what, reading through this book, it just is an affirmation for me of all of the things that I have been studying over the years about bringing kindness into a corporate culture, because it sounds really obvious that somebody walking into a culture where they feel like they are suppressed, they're overlooked, they are not valued, they don't belong, they are working for the money. Whereas if they feel like they're included, like they're being treated well, like they're seen and valued. I think you tell a story in this book about one particular CEO who went out of his way to really know everybody's names and try to talk to them and show them that he really cared. And the turnover rate just was almost zero.
It's amazing. It's amazing how effective it is. I'll give you one story. I don't want to give too many away. It's a quick read, and I think it's a great book for people to read, because I wrote this is different than any other of my other books because it's much shorter. And I wrote it kind of, if you can't beat them, join them. The world is getting quicker. Attention span's shorter. And so I wanted to create a book that was graphically, would grab you, but would be short and crisp and to the point. So as you said, it's a quick read, maybe 15 minutes if you really sit down and read it. You can read it 20 times though and get something new from it each time. But I tell a story, a firsthand story. I've done 65 speaking events for Kaiser Permanente. Kaiser Permanente, for those who don't know, if you're in the West, you know them. Kaiser Permanente is one of the biggest HMOs, healthcare organizations in the world. It has somewhere around 15 million members. And one of their locations in Los Angeles, they brought me in for a very interesting reason. First of all, the story of Kaiser Permanente is in itself a story to the power of kindness. When I was a kid growing up in Southern California, Kaiser Permanente had the worst reputation of any healthcare company. It used to say, you go into Kaiser, but you don't come out. It was a mess. And they are today considered one of the greatest healthcare companies in the world, the greatest when it comes to patient care. How did they do that? Did they just hire better doctors? What did they get? Well, guess what they did? They focused on kindness. They focused on patient care. Now, that didn't mean just clinical care and not just the person who's getting treated. It's their family. It's their children. It's the people who are sometimes worried about them more than we're worried about ourselves. And that every single meeting they have, every single day as they begin their day, is a focus on kindness. And they measure it. They work to measure it. And they transformed this gigantic organization into one that became extraordinarily successful from one that was not. But I was called in because there was one department in the Los Angeles area that was way below their standards. At Kaiser Permanente, you must be at least 80 and above on their very rigorous measurement in terms of patient care. And the one was surprising when I first heard about it was because you'd think it'd be the one place in a hospital where people are sort of happy was mother-child health care. So it's about birth and babies. And yet this location was constantly in the 50s, which was not acceptable at all in Kaiser Permanente. So I came in and I started by talking to probably close to 100 of the people who were in MCH, the physicians, the nurses, the technicians, everyone, whether it was in the NICU, whether it was, in delivery. I just talked to them and asked them questions. And from that came a formula for kindness that we started to install. I called it the 4 Ws. The first W was called warmth. Now, warmth and kindness, I feel, are very much the same. But what I found was what we talked about a minute ago. The staff was warm to people when they were warm. They were not warm to people when they were grumpy, scared, not being who they really are. Now, think about it. If you're a first-time mom or a dad, you're fairly tense. You don't know. You've never experienced it before. And so you may not be at your top level. So the first W we wanted to instill in this organization was we're going to be warm, especially when it's harder to be warm. That's the first W. The second W was welcome. First impressions matter when it comes to kindness. And when people walked into Kaiser Permanente MCH, it felt very sterile. There was no sense of warmth. There was no sense of the joy about your life is about to have the most magnificent change you could ever have. It was very, come to the desk, we'll sit down over there. No pictures, no nothing, no warmth from the people who were really, connecting with you to welcome you in. So we put welcome into their culture, into how they would be. A vital component to kindness is that first impression, and that means welcoming. The third was the most important one that I found there from talking to them. It was called we. When I talked earlier about siloing, there was massive siloing within mother-child healthcare. Each specific group did not connect with the other. In fact, they did the work. They sort of badmouthed the other. The night shift, the day shift. All right, the postpartum versus the delivery. They all felt in their own little silo, and so that is going to come through to the patient. That when they hear you, when you walk up to a fast food counter and you hear people bad-mouthing the person who's next to them, who's working beside them, you don't really want to go back again.
Right. So
we started to recognize that this we is a vital component to kindness. We got to be kind to one another if it's going to mean kindness and patient care for the patient. So warmth, welcome, all right, and we will lead to the fourth W, which is world class. So we went to work to create that in terms of training. So I did all these events in terms of the physical layout of the place, so that when you walked in, you felt like you were walking into home. There was this incredible sense of, wow, look at these beautiful pictures of these mothers with their brand new children, the joy in their faces. In 1 quarter, so 3 months, they went from the low 50s on their scores to the low 90s. And they stayed there. I think they're still there to this day. What is that? That 4 Ws? It's just a nice formula for creating kindness within your organization. As effective in healthcare as it is in finance, as it is in tech, as it is in manufacturing. Those 4 Ws are ever present, ever available to transform your organization.
And if our viewers and listeners wanted to find these 4 Ws, can you tell everybody where you might have them listed out? So if they weren't fast enough with their pens and papers,
buy the book. They're in the book.
There you go. Yeah, well, it is so good to have you talk about this, because this is something that a lot of people in America right now, they're going through layoffs. They're seeing their work offshored. They're feeling less secure and less valued. They're being asked to come into the office, but the office that they come into has, a skeleton crew, and a lot of them are scowling. What is your advice to those people who are in that situation right now and are feeling like there isn't warmth for them and they don't feel welcomed? They don't feel that sense of we. How can they get through, day to day? What's a basic thing that they can try?
And that is a real difficult challenge for people. And what I can say is you don't control what happens, but you do have control about what you do with what happens. You don't control the circumstances, but you do control your response. So the starting place is, don't go looking for that warmth and that welcome and that we. Become the igniter of those. Start by giving and start by building it, and it'll start to catch fire outside of yourself. That's hard, because that's just like being kind to somebody who's not kind to you. What do most of us do? When when we let the person in behind us, the person wants to come in front of us in the car, and we say, go right ahead. We think, hey, wow, what a great guy. And they wave to you. Then you let somebody in, they don't wave at you. And all of a sudden you go, you rotten. All right. So we have to be the igniters. That is the most important thing, because if you are seeking to receive that, if you're feeling bad that you don't have that warmth, you don't have that kindness, what you're focusing on what you don't control. We don't control other people. We don't control our approval. When you start to put it out and you do it not in order to get, you're on the pathway to finding joy no matter what. I'm on this show today with you, as you know, at a very tough time in my life, in that my father is nearing his end. My wife had a heart attack a couple of months ago that was a total shock, a complete utter shock. She's incredibly healthy. It'd be really easy right now to be down, all right, and say, why is this happening to me? Whereas what I choose to do, and it's not always easy. I'm not pretending that, we're Superman or Superwomen. What I choose to do is focus on what I want to create rather than what I don't want. Because either way, what you focus on is what you create. So focus beyond the obstacle. That's the starting place. The second thing I would say, I did a program once that I think really fits your question really well. I did a keynote for a company that was in another healthcare company. They were a maverick, privately owned company whose whole culture was that they would never sell out to the big guys. And they had been very successful for 20 years. They hired me to speak in October. They hired me in October. I was to speak in the beginning of November. On October 22nd, they sold out to Abbott Labs. It was a shock to every employee. Everyone had the same question that you just brought up. What does this mean to me? Am I going to have a job? And the truth was, they knew that probably 80% or more of them would not have a job, that they were going to be swept away. So I walk into this room after being hired, think I'm talking to this company with this culture that they're psyched up, ready to go, and they're looking like, and so I didn't pretend that there wasn't an obstacle. It's like when a little child is learning to ride their bike, they got their tongue out for balance. They start pedaling wrong. And your mom and dad are pushing them, holding them from behind, and they let them go and they're running. Right in front of them is a great big rock. What happens? Kid looks at the rock. What happens? They hit the rock, they fall over, they go, oh, I'm gonna die. Okay. Does it do that child any good to ride that same bike and close his eyes and say, there's no rock, there's no rock, there's no rock? No. It's going to be worse. They could get hurt. Yeah. So I didn't try to pretend there wasn't a challenge here. What I also wanted to know is you are not your job. You are more than that. And that what you do right now in this time of uncertainty has the greatest opportunity for wherever's next for you. Creates the greatest opportunity for you to grow, to shine, to have that sense of, I don't know what happened, but I'm going to find a way. And so we had an incredible day. People broke through, they felt, and I got emails from people months later who had lost their job, but were so excited about their new job, and that day made the difference from them worrying about what had happened to starting to shape their future and move in the new direction. They're happier than they've ever been. So 3 controllables that can make your life absolutely become what you want it to be. First is to shape your future. That's about vision. That all breakthroughs start with vision. You got to see it before you can be it. The second is to energize and engage yourself and your team. When it comes to kindness, comes to human performance, comes to teamwork, so much of it is energy. And yet most people think of their energy in the way they think about the weather. It's like, hope the weather is good for that family trip this weekend. But your energy is a choice, and a choice that transforms you. And to understand that when you focus on building your own energy, you're going to energize the people around you. And the third controllable is to build people, build teams, build relationships. Whatever field you're in, at the core, you're in the people business. It's how you grow, help others grow, that'll determine how far you can go. And so how do you help people know they're important? How do you help people know that they matter, that they count, that they're significant? How do you help people build trust immediately? How do you help people feel appreciated and welcomed and that they really have significance? that is also a controllable. There are things that we control. We don't necessarily control if they're going to feel those things, but we can put it out there,
Right.
and most of the time
Right.
it'll work. When you do those things, you're going to create breakthrough results.
I love it. I think that is such actionable advice for people out there who are listening in or watching you and getting this sense of, oh, wow, maybe I'm not so bad off. And so thank you for giving everybody hope here. One of the things that I love to do on this show, the show is called Our Future is Kind. And so what we love to do around here is we love to think about two things. One is, what is the ideal version of the future? What does it look like? Who's there? How are we interacting? What is our future? And then the second part is, what are the courageous acts of kindness that it will take to build that future? So if you'll do a little thought experiment with me here, Brian Biro, America's breakthrough speaker, let's do this. It's 2125. It is 100 years in the future. We've done all the right things. We have filled in that kindness gap that you were talking about earlier. And everybody has really worked hard to make the future as perfect as it can possibly be. So here we are in 2125. What are you looking for? What's there?
Wow, that is a phenomenal question. And I think that where I would start is probably the most surprising leadership key, kindness key, one of those 7 habits of highly effective CKOs that I would love to see flourish. So by 100 years from now, it has replaced hype. It has replaced, us against them. And it's called humility. 100 years from now, humility is one of the most highly esteemed qualities that we can choose. Like kindness, so many people these days look at humility with kind of a sense of, oh, that's kind of soft. You can't really be a competent person if you're humble. And I want to clear that. 100 years from now, let's wipe that off the slate. You can be incredibly humble and incredibly competent because they don't have anything to do with each other. Being humble doesn't mean you think less of yourself. It means you think of yourself less. And the reason why I think humility becomes so much more important as we build towards that future we want to build. Think about it. Only those who are humble are lifelong learners. Why? Because only those who are humble would rather learn something, even to make a mistake and learn from it, than to always pretend they're right. Only those who are humble are really focused on their character more than your reputation, because your character is what you control. Your character is who you are. Your reputation, only what others think you are. And if you stay focused on that humble focus of character, your reputation will eventually merge with your character. And when you are humble, you want to give credit and take responsibility. Too many people are got that backwards. They want to give blame and give up responsibility. So the starting place 100 years from now is that something that has I think diminished in its visibility and its importance to many people is risen very, very high. The second element is that people truly fill their lives with a sense of gratitude. Gratitude, there's a book that was written called Power versus Force. I don't know if you ever read this book or not. It's a difficult book to read. It's It's almost kind of textbooky, but it's a brilliant book from the perspective of what it shows. And what that book did was it measured the vibration. All right, everything has a vibration. We're electrical beings, and the highest vibration of all emotions is gratitude. In other words, when you are filled with gratitude, there is no room for anger. It overpowers anger. When you are filled with gratitude, there's no room for sadness. It overpowers sadness. It has a higher vibration. And so gratitude, when you come from a place of gratitude, you asked me the question before, where did you have this joy for people? I think it's because I have an enormous sense of gratitude. I begin every day with the same question. What am I truly grateful about today? And to me, the greatest gift we're ever given is called today. See, today, we all have a chance. We have a chance to learn something we never knew before that could change the rest of our lives. We have a chance to be a better mom or a better dad than we've ever been. We have a chance to have the courage to try something that we have always wanted to do, but we're afraid of what would happen if we didn't do it well. We have a chance to be kind.
Mm,
And then guess what? We wake up
mm,
tomorrow, we get that same best gift of all given to us again. And only we can open it. When you come from a place of gratitude, what I ask is, what am I truly grateful about today? It shifts my whole focus for the rest of the day to looking for what's good in people, for what's good in challenge. You know, Napoleon Hill, one of the great early thinkers in the world of personal development, said, within every adversity is planted the seed of an equivalent or greater benefit. In other words, when you think about it, the toughest times you've ever gone through, the toughest challenges you've ever faced, they may have been awful tough when you're in the middle of them. But when you step back, aren't they the things from which you grew the most? You know,
mm.
that is, when you start by that understanding that even in the midst of this challenge, something great's going to come. I'm going to learn things I never would have learned. My youngest daughter is my hero, one of my biggest heroes. Her name is Jenna. And Jenna had a terrible tragedy happen in her life when she was 23 years old, just out of college. She was working in the movies in California in the art direction side. And a young man that she was madly in love with, who was coming out the next week from Georgia to California to ask her to marry him, died from a drug overdose. And
Ah,
it tore my beautiful daughter's heart. And it was hard.
mm,
But today, my beautiful daughter, it took time, it took focus, it took understanding, it took a lot of things. But today, if she was with us on the studio, we'd have to adjust the lighting because she shines so bright. In other words,
ah,
that taught her something. That's not the way I would have taught her. But she's learned that she can handle anything. She can learn that she can choose love and joy and kindness in the midst of the darkest despair. And if she does so,
mm.
sooner or later, that light's going to shine brighter. And so to me, that 100 years from now, we shine a light on gratitude. We shine a light on humility. We teach these by, most of all, not by our words, but by our actions and our decisions, so that our children grow up understanding that strength is in humility, strength is in gratitude, that I have a choice about my energy. And AI will never give you all that stuff. That stuff is outside of the realm of AI. I don't care how smart it gets. That only can come human to human, person to person, love to love, kind to kind.
It sounds like a beautiful future. I absolutely want to get there. Hopefully our grandchildren's children will be the ones who are absolutely loving those new times that you've just invented for us. So thank you.
Great. Can I add one
And
more? Let me add one more.
oh, please do. Yeah.
100 years from now, I hope we have learned to value differences rather than to fear them and to hate them.
Mm,
When we say people are having differences, it means they're not getting along. But as a lifelong team builder, I do not want a team of people who are just like me, because they'll only
mm.
see the little narrow window that I see through. I want people who are great at things I'm lousy at. I want people around me who have passion for things that I'm not as passionate about. And then as long as we're working towards the same end, we're going to do so much more. Because here's a great word to replace differences with: resources. All right. I want those people who are great analytically and things that I'm not any good at. So when I look at my wife and I, we're so different. You know,
Mm.
for me, I've always been extremely on time. My wife, if she's within a 24-hour period, is cool. We could get fights about that, or I could learn to lighten up when it doesn't matter if we're late. And she could learn a little bit from me about when people are counting on us to be on time. That's valuing our differences, understanding that when we do that, that's the only way we can truly collaborate. Probably the thing that has saddened me and challenged me the most in the last 10 years is a further separation based upon differences. That, I thought we were coming back the other way, that it doesn't matter. We can disagree without being disagreeable. Behind me up there, the picture of my mentor, the greatest coach of all time, John Wooden, UCLA basketball coach. Wrote the foreword to my first book, the greatest of all time. If you've watched Ted Lasso, that pyramid of success is on his wall. John Wooden was absolutely someone who valued differences, who treated people with dignity and kindness. and he created the most successful career, probably never be touched in terms of 10 national championships, doing it as not a guy who threw chairs and who said, if you disagree with me, you're bad. No, he listened.
Mm.
He tried to understand. He tried to step into their shoes. Right? And you don't have to agree at the end of that. But when you do that, just the act of appreciating differences challenges you to look from a different point of view and maybe learn something about the way somebody else sees the world. So 100 years from now, if I had one last piece, it would be, let's value those differences, right? Let's learn to disagree without being disagreeable. Let's learn from each other instead of hate each other.
I have never regretted making a friend who is very different from me. I've never regretted it. If you have somebody who genuinely cares about you and loves you, and they happen to carry with them a different language and a different cuisine and a different dance style and all of these other wonderful things that they can teach you about, they've expanded your world and you've expanded theirs. So I very much commend you for that addition, because I envision sort of a Star Trek kind of future where the container that you are arriving in doesn't matter so much as what is the content? What is the content of your character? What is the content of how you show up for each other?
Beautiful. And you know, the fun part is when you do value those differences, it opens your eyes to your similarities. It opens your eyes to the things you have in common. Then maybe the most important, I've had two friends, two of my best male friends. We are completely opposite politically. You know, we just see the world different when it comes to politics, and yet we're deeply brothers. And we've learned to listen to each other on those different points rather than to attack each other. And the more we do that, the more we see that the things that really matter even more to us than politics, family, love, kindness, generosity, you know, appreciation, respect, worship, all those things. Suddenly we see, guess what? Those are connected. These other things are out there. And the value of those we learn. So the more that we respect and honor our differences, the more we see our similarities.
Love it. I couldn't agree more. And sign me up for your future. I want to live there. Now, you are an inspirational person. And I know that you reference other people who are also very inspirational. I want to know what gets you inspired.
Oh, my family, first of all.
Yep.
I get inspired by, I think that, you know, the greatest gift that comes with our children and our grandchildren is it is the ultimate inspirational igniter, because it gives us a reason to be better, a reason we recognize that when our children are young, that, you know, whether or not we're trying to teach them, we are teaching them. We're teaching them a way of looking at the world. We're teaching them a way to how we deal with adversity, with challenge, with change. We're teaching them how we wake up every day and what we look for and what we don't look for. And so the nonstop is I want to really be a good example for my family. I want them to feel like when it's all said and done that I cared about them with every ounce of my heart and soul. The other thing that inspires me is kind of a fun thing that anybody can do. And that is, you know, Stephen Covey often said, start with the end in mind. But we really don't very often. You know, example of raising our kids. How many of us are thinking when our children are young, babies, about what we want in the end? We're thinking about right now. We're thinking about, you know, so, and if you look at it differently, you know, one is like a GPS with a destination, and one is no GPS. I hope I end up getting there. All right. So, you know, early on raising our kids, we made the choice of what do we want most for them when we are done being parents. And that changed the whole way we looked at it. We wanted to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. That means that along the way, we got to not overprotect them. We got to let them make some mistakes. We got to let them carry the ball. We want them to be truly happy. How are you going to teach that? Be happy. You know, the greatest gift we give to our children is to love one another. So we want them to be happy. We want them to have confidence. We never thought about what kind of job they had or a level of education. We want them to be happy. We want them to be humble. We want them to stand on their own 2 feet. Start with the end in mind. So here's what you can do to really get inspired. Decide and envision 3 words that you want when you are gone, that people will describe, Michael Neese was kind, creative, gentle, whatever they are. So for me, all right, it's energetic, kind, and unselfish. All right. Or I could throw in generous. If I put those and so those 3 words inspire me. Every day I have a GPS destination. And if I make a wrong turn, I've got something to pull me back and inspire me to go that direction. And please know this, everyone who's watching your show, if you're not inspired, you're on the way to getting expired. All right. And probably the greatest book ever written about the power of inspiration is Man's Search for Meaning. It was a book by Viktor Frankl, who made it through Auschwitz, the concentration camp in World War II. And to me, the strongest lesson of that book said, the people who made it through, who survived the worst inhumanity to man, maybe of all time, were not the physically most fit or strongest necessarily. They weren't necessarily the youngest. What kept them alive? Those who survived were those that had a purpose left undone. Whether it was work they felt they alone must complete, whether it was children they had to get back to. That thread of inspiration in the midst of the world's worst inhumanity helped them survive. So understand that is the light in their life. I know that my own father right now, who's nearing his final days, really what's going on is his spark, his inspiration. His inspiration now is to be reunited with my mom. And with that is very life itself. So what inspires you is a great question to ask yourself. I'm so glad you asked your guests. And have fun with it. Pick out those 3 words that when your children are saying goodbye to you, going, my dad was energetic, he was kind, he was generous. And that's enough for me. That'll do the trick.
Well, and from me and from all of our audience here, I want to just wish your father happy final days and ones that are filled with the time with you and the times dreaming of what's next.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah, of course. Now, to wrap up the show, I can't believe this has just flown by.
We're already? Come on. We're getting started. Come on.
We'll have to do a part 2 soon.
I love it. There's so much more to cover.
Absolutely. So I just want you to tell everybody who's watching or listening in, how can they find you? How can they support you? And what's next for Brian Biro?
Well, I love that. My passion, what I believe I was put on earth professionally to do, is to speak in front of audiences. What I love, to help people walk in a room and by the time they finish, have a breakthrough they'll never forget and to believe in themselves more. So the easiest way to reach me is my website. It's www.brianbiro.com. I'd love to come speak for your organization. I do have an inspirational vision. I've been speaking for 35 years, my 3rd career. It took me 34 and a half years to reach 1 million people in front of the room. So I've spoken barely over 1 million people. My inspiration is I want to reach 1 million more in the next decade. So it took me 34 years to reach 1 million. I want to reach 1 million more in these next 10 years, by which time I'll be 80 years old. All right. And if I can do that, that only comes by bringing me in to speak to your organization. So I would love to do that. We'll have a great fun. We'll have breakthroughs that you will not forget.
Well, and I can attest, having been to one of your sessions, it was absolutely inspiring, helped me have my own personal breakthroughs, makes me excited about being a keynote speaker myself, just to watch you in action and get some of the, the tricks of the trade, some of those tools that you were, that you were just emulating the entire time. So everybody out there, please do tune in and try to find Brian on YouTube, on his website. Please do pick up copies of his books. And if you read them, please leave him a really nice review on Amazon, because the more they get reviewed and those nice high star ratings, the more people can find them. The more people who don't know about Brian will find him. So please do those things. And, Brian, do you have any last big words of wisdom before we depart?
I guess I do. The most important words I've ever written I think, get to the core of who you are, Michael, and what the work you do is. And those words say this. They say the love we fail to share is the only pain we live with. The love we fail to share is the only pain we live with. And if you don't pay attention to that now, and this window of opportunity, the love you fail to share may become the only pain you leave with. And that's too late. So if there's people in your life who you haven't told how much you care about them, do it today. If you haven't been fully present with people because you're too busy, stop, look, listen. Don't think about what you're going to say, just take it in. That's one of the most powerful forms of kindness. Do it today. If you've been using your memory to see instead of your vision, open your eyes fresh right now, because the love you fail to share is the only pain you live with. When you live with kindness, you're on the path to living pain-free.
I have nothing more eloquent than that to share, so we're going to end it there. Brian Biro, thank you so much for being on Our Future is Kind.
I had so much fun. You're doing great work, Michael. It's an honor. It's a privilege. You are the king of kind.
Since recording this episode, Brian Biro has become very involved in the Human Summit as part of our board of advisors and now as the lead-off keynote speaker for the entire event. You won't want to miss this. Brian is such a gifted speaker. He's going to kick it off with a lot of energy, and he's going to get you immediately involved and immersed into our day's events. Experience the Human Summit November 13th, World Kindness Day this year. It's going to be a blast. See you there. Today's Kindness Challenge. Today, choose to be the Chief Kindness Officer in every interaction, especially when it's hardest. Offer warmth to someone who's having a rough day. Welcome a colleague or neighbor genuinely, and seek ways to strengthen the we in your community or team. Want to stay inspired in the face of great danger and difficulty? Start each day with the question, what am I truly grateful for today? Live so that your 3 chosen words, the qualities you want to be remembered for, guide your daily actions. Pick up a copy of Brian's The ROI of Kindness and his other books on Amazon and leave a positive review to help more people discover his work. And join Brian and me and other leaders at the Human Summit on World Kindness Day, November 13th this year. Thanks again for listening to Our Future is Kind podcast, a podcast in search of a kinder future. Go out there and do something kind.